Hey, guys, welcome back to another episode of Devs Like Us. For this episode, we're going to go through and talk about whiteboard interviews and, some of the practices that you can go through, some of what you may expect in those interviews. And we're going to definitely give you some of our thoughts behind it, whether we like it, we don't like it, how we weigh them, and some resources for you guys to look into as you go through your study process for these interviews. Without further ado, welcome to another episode of Devs Like Us. Hey guys, how's it going?
Oh well, JB, how are
I'm doing really good, blessed and highly favored.
Hey,
Uh,
shout out to the Sunday recording.
hey.
Switched up
yeah, yeah.
the What's going on, Clarence?
Hey, how's it going? Good.
Good. All right, what you got for us today, JB?
All right, so we're going to start out with pretty much how to prepare for these whiteboard interviews. One thing I will say is for these whiteboard interviews, this is after, you've done all the fanfare that comes with, submitting that application, redoing your resumes, talking to the HR people, make sure you check off those lists and things like that. And this is where it gets down to the nitty gritty of what do you know and how can we as in the company, best use you to further our mission or our goals for this particular company. Um, and so, some ways that you can prepare is there's a lot of different things out there. So, some that I know of, there are some handbooks that people have written. These are actual developers who went through the same process. There are study guides that people have gone through. There's a bunch of different applications that you can use, and things like Leak Code and Algo Expert, and a handful of others that you can do to help, refresh those skills and, bring back the things that you don't quite remember from, your last interview or even from when you were in school, things like that. So yeah. How are you guys feeling about coding interviews? We know that Clarence, Mr. Hopper, is, a an interview expert. So,
I
so
wouldn't
yeah,
say
Clarence,
expert.
how the, how is it for you when it comes to, the more traditional interviews that, everybody gets no matter what type of degree or job that you're going through versus the technical interview and, sitting up there at that whiteboard and going through the process?
Well, I think firsthand, I guess it just depends on who is interviewing you, and like you said, they're just like the different types. I know I've been through like a couple where actually did like a panel interview one time where I met the customer, kind of like the end user actually, and I did very well on that. I felt like I was kind of a salesperson. It felt like I was just in my natural habitat, and then it came down to the actual coding interview where the tech leads came in and. Let's just say the tempo changed, and I mean, all in all, I think it all is kind of similar, but for the person that you're talking with who's less technical, it's easy enough to kind of impress, I should say, versus
Mm-hmm.
like when you actually get around folks who do, this stuff on a day to day, they have a process and they have a thought, or at least like a thorough kind of like environment where now they're trying to see how do you fit in to, their whole
Mm-hmm.
system. When getting prepared for, I guess, like the technical interviews, I've learned over time is that I used to stress what do I need to know, what do I don't know, and so forth. But from, kind of time and time again, I've realized that the most important thing that I could do when walking in is just being kind of a free mind so that I can think logically when asked, certain questions.
Gotcha. How do you feel about the tech interviews, T-Man?
I think they're definitely necessary. It's they definitely vary, like you all said, they vary from depending on who the potential employer is. But I think this is definitely necessary. There are some feelings I have about, actually, I haven't even thought about some things until, friends who have experience have introduced to me like, hey, we have this take home project to do, and like I might not even get this job, and I'm basically working, and they feel as though they're contributing to something that the company might like actually really use. And so I do have some thoughts about that, but it's one of those things where I guess you necessarily don't have to do it. So it's I feel as though some definitely have a better process than others, and I guess that goes without saying. But it's necessary. So I think this is a great topic to discuss. Really, how do you stay in that mindset? For me, it it I had that early on when I was still in school. I had one technical interview where I just like left out feeling like horrible, and I think it
Mm-hmm.
really it doesn't take, but a lot of times that experience helps you say, okay, this is a different beast. You can't just go in here saying, I've had all the education. It's like, it's a different mindset. It's like, it needs to be fresh in your mind. These topics need to be fresh in your mind. You don't really have time for the whiteboard interviews to like refresh your memory on the spot. You want
Yeah.
to do that refreshing of the memory beforehand before you go there. And there are senior engineers who I've talked to who said like they would fail code interviews
Mm-hmm.
because you're focusing on different problems. It's a different mindset. There are actual things that you apply on the job, but you're not always applying all these things, this entire breadth of
Definitely.
knowledge from day to day. So it is definitely a different beast. So no, my one big thing to stress is that you're not alone. If you feel like this is a lot of information to learn and only being asked a few things, like yeah, that's true. It is definitely true. But I think breaking it down in some of the study guides the community has been able to provide can help say like, okay, if they ask me this question, it's within this bucket of knowledge. If they ask me this
True.
question, is this within this bucket of knowledge? And so even though you might not have the exact answer, you can explain it in a way where they know like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about and could solve this problem if they were able to do it. So sometimes you're asked a question where you're it's not about you getting right. It's just about being able to express and let the interviewer know that how you're thinking
True.
that process.
Agreed.
Yeah, because you brought up a good point about some of the engineers that you work with that they're saying, yeah, I probably would fail. And for me, I personally feel like those like some whiteboard, not all of them, but some whiteboard interviews are just how much work are you willing to put in to get this job, and that's it. Because it's all about who's going to study the most, who can retain what they've studied the most, and regurgitate that back to me in a clear and concise fashion. Um, and by concise, it doesn't mean that it has to be, flat out right from the beginning, because a lot of these coding interviews, they just want to hear you talk through the problem. They want to
Mhm.
know and understand how your mindset is and how you're able to say, okay, well, this is going to be, such and such complexity where I need it to be a little bit faster because this is something that the user sees or, something that goes on in the background and things like that. And so those type of things are essentially what they're looking for. And one good resource that you can use is Google actually has a YouTube channel where they go over like a bunch of their interview questions. How do you guys feel about like given me your overall thoughts, but how do you essentially feel about them? We know Terrence he thinks they're super necessary. But yeah.
Well, I know starting off, so I have had the take-home project and the literal whiteboard, and I think like I know the take-home project, it was kind of it was interesting because I mean it's like you get some time, whether it be a day or a week to kind of complete something. And I think one of the things that kind of got me was that I was trying to or at least I felt like I was stressed out because I wanted my code to be perfect, and when they read it, I wanted them to know that like I was the right person for the job. Like, of course, you want the job as the end goal, but you know somebody's reading your code, so you're kind of, you kind of get like defensive about it, where you're like, I need to make sure that I'm doing this, I need to make sure I'm doing that, like what are some of the coding standards that that I might need to follow. And I think one of the, I guess like a pro to it is that it does kind of give you a chance to you know see a problem that you wouldn't see on a day-to-day. I think one of the things that I kind of stressed out was that I felt like the problem that I did get, it was more like something you would see in college. So in a way, it was kind of, you were comfortable with, figuring out how to solve it. But the con is like, you think like, oh, I thought they would ask me to, build a website to do this, or, build a app to do such and such. And so like, you kind of feel like you overthink it a little bit. But I will say like the con is that, you've been coding a certain way for, if you have been working with an employer, you've kind of conformed to their standards, and then now you're interviewing for this brand new company, and of course they have their own standards. I think across the board, it might be rare, at least from my experience, that everybody kind of follows the same structure, format, and such things like that. So I would say don't go in beating yourself up if you think that you could have did something more efficient, or you could have did something a certain way, because at the end of the day, that's what you're used to. I mean, if anything, they'll come back and ask you, why did you do it this way? Why do you consider it that way? But at the same time, you've been doing this for however long, or if you're brand new at it, you've been studying up for something like that for a while. So it's what and then I guess like I
take
said,
it as a learning process.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like you said, with you feel like you weren't as efficient as you could have been with something. Well, it's like, all right, well, let me take note of this and, go back to the drawing board, figure out how to be better in this particular area, because number one, that also helps you with focusing in on a spot that you may be weak in. It's like, all right, well, for this particular one, we're going to figure out, the best way to search through trees and things like that. So, yeah.
Agreed. No, for sure. It's definitely a learning experience either way. I personally say, if you can get a couple of interviews, because you'll get, eventually what you'll end up seeing is that everybody has a different style of how they do them, and you might even see similarities in questions. So, if anything, that as Jasmine noted, it's a learning experience that you can kind of take and move on to the next one. And then the only thing else that I'll add is when I had my little whiteboard interview, I did feel the anxiety of somebody staring down my back, like, hopefully I write this up correctly. And I was really wishing, yeah, I was really wishing that I had a smart board that I could pull up Stack Overflow when I got stuck. So
real programmers do this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, where's the click button? I need to find this.
But it's also, I just remembered, notice that I didn't give a pro. And one of the pros is it helps you to refresh on the things that you may have forgotten.
For sure.
Because certain things you may not think of in the forefront of your mind, but they're so ingrained in your subconscious when you're like going through your programming process that you just do it. And so having that refresher helps, bring some of that stuff back to the forefront for you and things like that. How about you, T Manning? Pros, cons?
Yeah, for the pros and cons of the whiteboard session, you're able to have that dialogue back. Most likely, the person who's asking the question, they don't want you to just sit there in silence working. They want you to talk out loud. So you're having that dialogue back and forth, so they're able to get your thought process. And so that's a big pro. The con is just that we're so used to autocorrect IDEs giving us those suggestions and everything. And so that's really the con. You don't have that. So you really have to go off that memory. But that's when, in order to make up for it, you want to be able to make sure that you can speak out loud.
Agreed. I do say that is kind of like one of the biggest things is that, you don't have that autocorrect. It's like, what did I use? But I mean, normally you're usually using like a little small function that you're building on. So, I mean, for the most part, you don't need to rely on it a whole lot, but you definitely want to make sure that you got your logic down pat and kind of like, and I think too, to kind of add on to what T-Man said is that, you're used to a normal formal process, but like now you're like on the spot. So it's like, come up with something.
It's like, give me something good. But it's also to think about when it comes to how we traditionally code with IDEs. Like we're usually importing packages, modules, and doing all that stuff. Whereas when they give you, your questions and things, it's more so they're giving you general questions.
Right.
It's very generic of, well, what would you do if I told you I want this to do this? And it's more so they want you to go through your thought process before you even start programming of what does this look like? What's the data types and all this different stuff. And then it's how do you get through from beginning to end to this particular piece? And then how can we rework this? Or if we can rework this, how would that look? And so as far as your IDEs, it's like, it's nice to have, but for the coding interviews, they don't generally, go that in depth with what they're doing, unless it's, one of those take home projects. Then, yes, you're going through that whole process, but it's also a take home. So you have that chance to do all the things that, we're talking about. And so, that's essentially my thought on it. As far as the pros, again, I think it's great to have, that instant feedback of what you're doing and whether you're on the right track or not on the right track. Because sometimes it may just be a miscommunication between you and the person who's interviewing you, and you may not be on the right track at all. But you have that instant dialogue with them to, get you through that. Whereas, if you were sitting at home and you were going through, you may have misinterpreted the entire thing. And now it's like you send in something, it's like, that's not what we asked for. But also, generally, they're not going to be that broad for you to even make that mistake. And so, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, so you have whiteboard interview, we have pair programming, we have take home, and what else is there, JB? I'm trying
Just
to think.
The word. Just the word doc.
In the Word doc.
Word.
Which one are y'all picking?
Yeah.
Which one? If you had a choice between all of them, which one are you picking?
So in all of my years of coding, my favorite is pair programming. But the only problem with that is if your partner isn't as strong as you are.
True.
That becomes a problem because then it's, you're pulling them along. But it also shows you where you fall within, that realm of programming skills, because you may be the person that's, not that strong. And then it's like, I'm really holding this back. But that's also about you taking the initiative to go ahead and do what you need to do. How about you, Clarence?
I think for me now, gone through it, I favor more of the take home project because it gives me a little bit of chance to kind of think things out. In a lot of cases they let you pick your own language, so I could pick something that I'm a little bit more comfortable with, and I could try to do my best. But yeah, I think that would be the one that I would favor the most. I haven't had pair programming. I'm a little afraid because I already know I'm probably the weakest, so I wouldn't. I'll claim my spot.
Nonsense, Clarence. Nonsense. I'm so humbled. But I'm with you. I think I would take the take home test, even though it's like I know a lot of people say, oh, you're not even getting compensated for that. But if I want the job and stuff, I do think I can probably be that. It's more realistic to the work that they would get from me on the day to day. But I'm down to adapt with whatever they throw. But for me, the biggest thing is just knowing what to expect. Like if I know what I'm going, like I don't want to go in there and like, I don't know, are they going to hand me like an exam to take, like a paper exam, and then throw me in here and then throw me there? Like I want to know, like I don't have to know what they're going to ask, but I would like to know like some form of idea of the format, to be honest. But
Right.
And I also love just being able to speak on experiences and past projects as well.
Yeah, I think it all depends on who your audience is too. Because I think like sometimes you might get a group, and again, this might be based off the company, but you might get a group who is a little bit more understanding. They've all been there, so they kind of have they all know that you're probably stressed out, especially if you're in front of it, all of them. And I mean, let's be honest. Nobody remembers everything. I mean, you have to remember the most core things that are essential to that particular role. But for the most part, like we all know, you Google it.
Sometimes you have to know what to Google for as well. But that's a good turning point, though, as far as a resource. JB, did you have some resources for us, or want to talk about some ways we can?
I do. So number one, I want to give a shout out to Maya_loves_code on Instagram, because a lot of these resources came from her, because she's recently gone through the process of preparing and studying for quite a few different code interviews. And so some of them, I'll just kind of give a general name, and we'll be sure to put them in the description down below. So there's the Technical Interview Handbook that is hosted by Yangshan on github.io. And it's just yangshan.github.io/tech-interview-handbook. Another one is the technical interview, technical interview study guide. And so that one is really good. It gives you like a full breakdown of different topic areas that you should make sure that you know and understand and cover before you get to your interviews and things like that. And then you have the technical interview cheat sheet. That this one was started a few years ago, but has a lot of great information for you. And there's even some practices that you could do within the cheat sheet. And for all those people who feel like, just the whiteboard sessions aren't for them, there's even a GitHub page that is dedicated to having a list of companies who don't have the whiteboard sessions as a part of their interviewing process. And that is github.com/POTE/hiring-without-whiteboards, which is a great resource. They have it well organized and things for people to use. And so, yeah, I hope all these resources help you guys get through your interview process, and it's very helpful for you all as you go through the process. Any last words from you guys? Oh, yeah, forgot about that one. And Cracking the Coding Interview book as one of those either digital resources, or as Terrence has, the actual physical book for you to go through, which I would definitely recommend the physical book, just because it gives you that chance to actually
nice.
take notes and go through that process. So guys, this is all we have for you. I hope this episode was very helpful in getting at least a glimpse into what you could expect when it comes to whiteboard interviews and things like that. Please let us know if you have any additional things that you would recommend for whiteboard interviews, or any comments that you have, within our comment section and things like that. Please remember to leave a review on our podcast for the people who are just listening. And for the people on YouTube, please make sure you comment down below. We want to have that discussion with you guys about your thoughts and things like that. And please make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel. And without further ado, we're out. And also, happy belated Pi Day.
Yes.
All right, guys, we're out.